Wisdom and understanding.
April 22nd was Earth Day. We use our program today to draw attention to the issue of environmental devastation in Biafra land. We use this program today to honor the earth.
God of our ancestors, we have gathered again in great numbers to perceive these enlightening messages. We have come to offer prayers in all humbleness. Who are we to challenge your mighty hands? For you are a great God. You who knew all hidden secrets, it is you that have given birth to our fathers, our forefathers and their fathers before them. Our noble land we are here to honor you. Guide our feet so that we might not stray in the wrong direction. Great flood that lifts heavy boulders, we call on you. Come and take Kola Nut and chew to your heart's content. Great tree that shelters his brothers, even with his own shadows. We are on our knees before you. Great land of Biafra, where the sun never fails to rise. Land of the rising sun, we are grateful. Come and partake on these loaves of Kola Nut. We remember the 5 fingers that represent the 5 cardinal laws of our land. He said, and in the 4 market days, Eke that came before Ore that came before Afo, and Afo, the senior Tonkwa, 4 days, 4 market days. Land of our birth, we are under siege. You can't be there and they are trampling us all under their feet. The all-knowing one, wipe our tears with your long garment. Help us to reclaim our land from all intruders. Subjugation now abounds in our land. Our tears now flows in huge torrents. Bless our voice, BCB, the voice that speaks for the subjugated masses. Give it the eloquence that opens even deaf ears. Guide and protect us all and help us to prevail. He said,
and here is a special announcement from the leadership of Biafra government in exile. This is BCB.
Fellow Biafrans, I greet all of you as sovereigns of Biafra, whose freedom is guaranteed by the natural laws that govern all life in this universe. These laws dictate that all men and women are born free with certain inalienable rights. For far too long, our lives, identity, culture, and sovereignty has been hijacked. We are indentured to a corporation called Nigeria, created by a feudal constitution, which now holds us against our will in a fraudulent union created to serve the interest of the British Empire. To get out of this bondage, we must be organized, have clear program and strategy that is feasible and can be implemented. A credible governance structure that will give our people and the international community confidence in our ability to follow through a process in a peaceful, diplomatic, and democratic fashion. This is what the Biafra Provisional Government is doing, providing a governance structure upon which Biafra self-determination project can be effectively executed to deliver Biafra exit from Nigeria. To liberate us from this unfortunate situation we find ourselves since 1965-1966. A section of the Biafra Charter states, and I quote, "Whereas the peoples and nation of Biafra and their land and property find themselves under physical, sociological, political, and economic subjugation by the state of Nigeria since 1967, a state of occupation by Nigeria. This has existed and continues to exist. Unwilling to continue to live under such stifling servitude, while suffering such indignities as are inappropriate for human beings, determined to exercise the natural and legal rights to freedom and liberty. We now, therefore, the peoples of the Federation of Biafra, have resolved to actualize, renew, reaffirm, and continue with the Declaration of Biafra Independence of May 30, 1967, with all the implications thereof. In reaffirming the independence of Biafra, the peoples and nation of Biafra make neither war nor peace with the state and peoples of Nigeria. Rather, we exercise a natural right, a popular right, a political right, and a right supported by United Nations Organization Charter and international laws, the right of self-determination. In the certain realization that only the effective exercise of self-determination by the peoples and nation of Biafra will end the state of occupation and subjugation by Nigeria of Biafra. In furtherance of this exercise, the Biafra Charter, a formal organ of the people and nation of Biafra, lends authority to and issues a mandate for the creation and formation of Biafra Provisional Government, BPG. End of quote. We are now at crossroads, and all stakeholders, interested parties, indeed all sovereign Biafrans from all walks of life must put aside individual selfish interests so that we can work for our collective survival. The Biafra Provisional Government has started the work of engaging all interested parties in our territory to ensure that from the start, the joint interests of all Biafrans will be catered for in the restoration of our beloved homeland. All nationalities within Biafra will be recognized as not mere minorities, but sovereign nationalities with the right to govern their region or state or province. The Constitution of Biafra will be a joint effort from all nationalities with their individual and collective interests well represented. A system that will be built on the principles of truth, equity, justice, and opportunity, which will guarantee equality for all nationalities within our territory. The concept and operation of Biafra Government in Exile, BGIE, is one of hope and expectation. BGIE is an arm of the Biafra Provisional Government, the other being the Biafra Shadow Government at home. Biafra Government in Exile is a substratum of the Government of Biafra. It predates all groups. Government is a vestige of sovereign jurisdiction, the legal personality of state that have arbitral succession, no matter who is on the driving seat. That's why you have countries and regions that have subsisted in the world for thousands of years. That is why it is commonly said that governments have perpetual succession. In the case of Biafra, our sovereignty was expressed in 1967 through a sovereign declaration and will of the people to govern themselves in an act of self-determination. A civil war was fought, and the government was defeated. The country was lost to war, but the government did subsist with its own territory, its own governance structure, its own currency and flags, as a responsible member of the Committee of Nations, with its own passport and staff for 3 years. There was indeed a nation. When the country was lost, the government went into exile. It never relinquished governance. Through negotiating the return of its leader, Colonel Ojukwu, through facilitating, aiding, and assisting Biafrans across the globe quietly, in quiet interventions across countries, through re-engineering the desire for the return to the homeland in the face of massive corruption that has engulfed Nigeria. The government in exile of the Republic of Biafra has been continuously working behind the scenes. With the current renewed agitation, the government is now manifest, with the shadow government at home, poised to take on sovereign responsibility. The Biafra Provisional Government is a vestige. It receives all groups. It is not allied to any group. It welcomes all groups. It relates to all groups. It recognizes all groups. It has reached out to all groups and will continue to do so, because what we seek for is self-governance of our territory and the freedom to develop and restore opportunity and competition to all our peoples. The Biafra government in exile is epitomized by the African National Congress, the ANC. The ANC was in exile for many years. They moved their capital around from Arusha to Zambia, from Lagos to Gaborone. So the government in exile of ANC midwifed the process in South Africa through apartheid. In the same vein, the government in exile of Eritrea midwifed their transition to nationhood. Therefore, in the same vein, we will, as a government, continue to shape, relate with, and midwife the process of eventual emergence of the sovereign state of Biafra. Be it known to all that the government never died. The government simply went into exile upon defeat, but have continued to subsist. The Biafra Provisional Government will continue to appreciate, support, and encourage all individuals, organizations, and groups who are doing and continue to do wonderful things towards the realization of Biafra exit from Nigeria, in order for Biafra to once again become an independent state and realize her dreams as a beacon of light and the hope of our continent. It was once said, in Biafra, Africa died. But soon we shall proudly say, in Biafra, Africa lived again. May God bless you all, and may God bless the sovereign state of Biafra. This is the Prime Minister of Biafra Provisional Government.
This is the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB, bringing you news, cultural, and educational programs. This is BCB, the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra. This is BCB, the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra. This is BCB News Compilation. I am Rose Ama. News from Biafra. Prison break in Owerri, the Imo State capital. According to Reuters Nigeria, more than 1,800 prisoners are on the run in southeast Nigeria after escaping from their prison cells when heavily armed gunmen attacked their prison using explosives and rocket-propelled grenades, the authorities said. Nigeria police said it believed a banned separatist group, the Indigenous People of Biafra, IPOB, was behind the attack in the city of Owerri, but a spokesman for the group denied involvement. IPOB and ESN were not involved in the attack in Owerri, Imo State. It is not our mandate to attack security personnel or prison facilities, the IPOB spokesman said in a phone call. The secessionist movement in the Southeast is one of several security challenges facing Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari, including a decade-long Islamist insurgency in the Northeast, a spate of school kidnappings in the Northwest, and piracy in the Gulf of Guinea. Buhari said the attack in a city near the oil-rich Niger Delta region that is the mainstay of Africa's top crude exporter and biggest economy was an act of terrorism. He ordered security forces to apprehend the fleeing prisoners. In recent months, security in Biafra land has deteriorated. Several police stations have been attacked since January, with large amounts of ammunition stolen. There are reports of the IPOB's paramilitary wing, the Eastern Security Network, ESN, clashing with the military. Dead bodies have been found dumped in Calabar. The Nigerian police has cordoned off the valley where 15 decapitated and decomposed bodies were discovered on Tuesday, 13th April 2021, in the outskirts of Calabar, the Cross River State capital. The police commissioner, Sikiru Akande, has been silent over the incident. He feigned ignorance of the incident when told that some policemen in camouflage have cordoned off the place, retorting, "Police do not wear camouflage on Tuesdays." He later visited the scene of the incident, but has not divulged any information on who may be behind the killings or who dumped the bodies in the valley, or even who the victims might be. The Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps confirmed that a total of 15 bodies, comprising both males and females, were discovered at the said location. Alfred Mboto, Permanent Secretary, Office of State Security Advisor to the Governor, denied claims of extrajudicial killing, saying the bodies may be those of cult clash victims. But some commercial motorcyclists seen at the scene claimed that this would be the second time in 2 months that bodies were found in the same area, alleging that those behind the strange action may be known to the government. Fulani herdsmen attack Ebonyi the second time in 2 weeks. Fulani herdsmen in the early hours on Monday attacked a village in Ngbo community of Ohaoku local government area in Ebonyi State. It was gathered that many have allegedly lost their lives following the deadly attack. Houses of innocent indigents of the area were burnt down by the rampaging herdsmen. Ebonyi State government on Wednesday last week stated that it had put modalities in place for the setting up of 1,000 vigilante groups across the state. The attack affected Ebele village in Umugodakpa community. Some victims of the incident are now taking shelter in the homes of their relatives in other villages. A week prior to this attack, herdsmen had attacked 4 communities in Ishielu local government area, where over 25 innocent rural dwellers were massacred in cold blood. As at the time of filing this report, no suspect has been arrested by the Ebonyi State Police Command in connection with the killing. The Biafra Provisional Government strongly condemns the attacks on communities in Ebonyi State by terrorist Fulani herdsmen. In a statement, the Biafra Provisional Government says, the Nigerian security forces have refused to investigate and arrest the perpetrators of this heinous crime against Biafrans. It would appear these terrorists have the backing of the Nigerian government because the police and other security agencies have never brought any of these terrorists to book. All Biafrans are therefore encouraged to remain vigilant and raise alarm in time to ward off these cowardly attacks. This is BCB News.
Everybody wants to holla.
Now, news from Nigeria. Biafra is not alone in its agitation for autonomy, agitation for a Yoruba nation. The Are Ona Kankanfo of Yoruba land, Are Gani Adams, has said that majority of Yoruba people are ready for self-determination. Speaking in Ikeja, Lagos on Wednesday at a public presentation of a book titled Roundtable Discussion on Economy and Restructuring in Nigeria, edited by Professor Hassan Saliu and Mr. Billy Adedamola, Adams noted that a power bloc was not ready for restructuring. He added, I support the popular view that we have graduated from restructuring to self-determination, but the main powerful bloc is not ready. This is what Yoruba leaders are clamoring for. If Nigeria is not restructured in the next 3 years, the future is bleak. We have different types of restructuring, so they should know the kind of restructuring that they want. If Nigeria will be restructured, we have to borrow points from 1960 and 1963, which give room for regionalism. It also allowed that the 6 zones can develop at their own paces. My own is self-determination. You prepare for negotiation. The Oni of Ife, Oba Adeyeye Ogunwusi, represented by the Alara Odaye of Ife, Oba Shegun Layade, said most of the resources in the south were being enjoyed mostly in the north. He also called for the reintroduction of history in the school curriculum. In the same vein, a People's Democratic Party chieftain, Chief Bode George, who was represented by Dr. Charles Akintoye, said Nigeria's structure was defective, adding that the country's economy was tribalistic and north-centered. In other news, while speaking at the Edo State Transition Committee stakeholders engagement over the weekend, Edo Governor Godwin Obaseki claimed that the federal government printed money to bridge FAAC allocation. When we got FAAC for March, the federal government printed additional 50 to 60 billion naira to top up for us to share, he said. But the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, said Obaseki's claim was very sad because it was untrue. Reacting to Zainab Ahmed, on Thursday, Obaseki, through his official Twitter handle, said, "We believe it is our duty to offer useful advice for the benefit of our country. The Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning should rally Nigerians to stem the obvious fiscal slide facing our country. Rather than play the ostrich, we urge the government to take urgent steps to end the current monetary rascality so as to prevent the prevailing economic challenge from degenerating further." He added, "We believe it is imperative to approach the Nigerian project with all sense of responsibility and commitment and not play to the gallery because ultimately time shall be the judge of us all." In an interesting turn of events, Godwin Emefiele, the governor of Central Bank of Nigeria, has confirmed that the federal government printed money to augment March 2021 allocation to states. He argued, as he did in January, that printing money to support states is not new and that people should stop adding coloration to it. He also added in a video and report by TNG that the bank's interventions are meant to address the grim economic outlook because Nigeria is unfortunately in a very bad situation. Sadly, This is another anniversary of the Chibok girls' kidnapping. Wednesday, 14th of April, 2021, marked exactly 7 years since the abduction of 276 students from Government Girls Secondary School, Chibok, Borno State in northeast Nigeria. But today, there are still 112 of those girls in the captivity of Boko Haram terrorists. On that night of April 14th, 2014, terrorists invaded the Government Girls Secondary School, Chibok, and by daybreak, a total of 276 students, all girls, were missing. The girls were preparing for the West African School Certificate examination at the time of their abduction by the murderous criminal elements known as Boko Haram. The fate of the students, some of whom have been released in batches, remains a sad reference in the nation's war against terrorism and banditry. The situation also underscores the lack of value these terrorists have for the lives of citizens, especially for girls and women in Nigeria. Although Buhari's political party promised the return of the girls, only some were released. The fate of 112 girls remains unknown. Many similar brazen school abductions have taken place with very little or no active response by the Buhari government since then. Instead, Buhari has negotiated and paid millions of naira to the terrorists each time such abductions occur, further encouraging more abductions. For the parents of the 112 students still in captivity, the yearly assurance by the government of the release of their children seems to be meaningless. 20 of those parents have been reportedly dead, while their girls are still missing. This year, the world remembered the Chibok girls with renewed calls for their release. The Speaker of the House of the United States House of Representatives, Speaker Nancy Pelosi, took to her verified Twitter handle as Speaker Pelosi on Wednesday to call for the return of the girls. Also, the Foreign Relations Committee of the US Senate tweeted under the verified Twitter handle at Senate Foreign, quote, "After 7 years, it is still painful to reflect on the tragedy of the hashtag Chibok girls abduction by hashtag Boko Haram," unquote. Congresswoman Lucille Roy Bart Allard also tweeted calls for the release of the kidnapped girls. To mark the 7th anniversary of the abduction of the girls, international rights group Amnesty International has some harsh words for the federal government of Nigeria, accusing it of not learning from the Chibok experience in protecting school children from attacks. In a statement on Wednesday, Amnesty said, "The Nigerian authorities' failure to protect school children from recent attacks clearly shows that no lessons have been learned from the Chibok tragedy. The authorities' only response to school children being targeted by insurgents and gunmen is to close schools, which is increasingly putting the right to education at risk. Whatever authorities are doing to tame this tide, it is not working." At a meeting with Swiss President Alain Berset in 2018, President Muhammadu Buhari said that the federal government had implemented strategies to ensure the safe return of the girls. He emphasized that his government was building on its past successes of securing the release of some of the Chibok girls and other abducted persons in the northeastern part of Nigeria. "We will continue to make the safe release of the remaining Chibok girls a priority and will welcome any kind of support from any quarters to make this happen," Buhari said. The reality, however, is that instead of rescuing the 112 girls who are still in captivity, things have worsened as Nigeria continues to witness more mass abduction of students and other citizens since the Chibok girls incidents. Here are some recent mass abduction of students. 11th December 2020, 300 students were kidnapped by bandits at the Government Science Secondary School, Kankara, Katsina State. 17th February 2021, 27 students were abducted by gunmen from their dormitory at the Government Science Secondary School in Kangara, Niger State. 26 February 2021, more than 300 students were abducted when bandits invaded the government girls' secondary school, Jangegbe, Zamfara State. 11th March 2021, 39 students were abducted by bandits at the Federal College of Forestry Mechanization in Kaduna State. Only 5 were recently released. Update on the strike by medical doctors and medical professionals in Nigeria. The federal government has met with the representatives of all the professional bodies and unions in the health sector over the issue of hazard allowance for health workers in government health establishments. According to the government, it was in furtherance of the April 2020 Memorandum of Understanding that is signed with the health workers in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. Buhari's medical surgeon in London is garnering news. The medical surgeon of Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari in London has entered its 3rd week, fueling speculations of an extension of his medical surgeon in the United Kingdom. But the president's office has not issued an update on his London stay. It would be recalled that the Nigerian president supposedly traveled to London on March 30th for a routine medical checkup, according to presidential spokesman Femi Adesina. There have been no updates to date as to his health or the nature of his stay in London. However, Buhari's short rest at the Abuja House in London has been marred by the hashtag Harass Buhari Out of London protest, organized by Reno Omokri, an ex-aide to former President Goodluck Jonathan. The counter-protest, or a solidarity protest organized in support of the Nigerian president, can only be described as absurd drama. While the hashtag Harass Buhari Out of London protesters wants the president to return to Nigeria to fix its healthcare system, the solidarity protesters believe the president has a right to seek medical attention abroad, even when medical professionals were owed salaries and on strike in Nigeria. This is not the first time, however, the president will travel to London for medical purpose. According to Punch findings, between 2015 and 2019, Buhari spent a total of 404 days, that is, a year and 39 days, traveling to 33 countries on 4 continents. Most of his visit, however, has been to the United Kingdom, where he has spent 217 days, mostly on health grounds and meetings of Commonwealth heads of state and government. Buhari has also been criticized for his medical trips abroad, despite the huge budget allocated to the Aso Rock Clinic annually. Buhari is away at a time when the Judiciary Staff Union of Nigeria has been on strike since April 6th over the autonomy of the judiciary. It should be noted that the president is away at a time when different parts of the country boil over with insecurity caused by rampaging Fulani herdsmen, killing indigenous people, apparently with the tacit support of the police and the army. This is BCB, the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra. And now, religious profiling. The Nigerian army killed 350 Christian civilians in 10 months and in peacetime. This is a gory tale of the unfolding genocide in Nigeria. Killings in the name of religion. The International Society for Civil Liberties and Rule of Law, Inter-Society, is deeply pained and saddened by indiscriminate massacring of defenseless civilians of Christian faith by Nigerian army. It reports that in the past 10 months, from July 2020 to first week of April 2021, 350 defenseless Christian civilians, if not more, have been massacred by the army in its supposed peacetime internal security operations. The defenseless victims slain because of their religion and ethnicity were summarily executed by soldiers to avenge the loss of their colleagues. Religious profiling and hate soldiering are on the rampage. As part of its hate soldiering and religious profiling, the army turned its weapons of death against defenseless Christian civilians at the slightest or no provocation, while refusing to respond to attacks by Muslims in Muslim areas. Our recent investigation found that the army lost at least 300 soldiers in 2020, and most of them were killed in the Muslim-held Northeast and Northwest by Muslim insurgency groups. Yet, the army does little or nothing when Muslim insurgency groups like Jihadist Fulani herdsmen and Jihadist Fulani bandits attack and slaughter defenseless citizens, especially Christians. In the 3 months and 10 days of 2021, according to the Nigerian Security Weekly Tracker, reports of the Council on Foreign Relations monitored by former U.S. Ambassador to Nigeria, John Campbell, show that the Nigerian army has lost a total of 70 soldiers, with 58 lost in Borno State alone, 9 in Nasarawa, and 3 in Gusau, compared to about 25 in Benue, South-South, and Southeast. Yet, the attackers in the northern states are still at large, and those communities have not been wiped out or razed. Such Muslim-held communities, including Damboa, Dikwa, Chibok, Maiduguri, Nasarawa, Gusau, Kukawa, Mate, Koya, and Guzamala, are still inhabited and their houses, mosques, and emir palaces intact. On the contrary, the cases of Akwa Ibom and Benue states have received violent responses. For losing 11 soldiers in Benue state, 100 defenseless Christian civilians or more were massacred, and dozens are still missing. Their homes and properties, including the palace of the respected traditional ruler of Agidi, Tuar, Unaha, Koko, destroyed or set on fire. In Akwa Ibom State, Esien Udim local government area, for losing some police officers and others to criminal citizens, defenseless Christian civilians numbering 30 or more were slaughtered by soldiers and their homes and properties razed or burnt. Survivors were forced to flee and take refuge in a Catholic church. According to facts emerging from Shangev, Tiev, Konshisha local government area of Benue, apart from massacring 100 or more, the Nigerian army also bombed, razed, and demolished farms, schools, hospitals, and residences belonging to over 15 rural Christian communities of Bonta, Etse Jembe, Se Anyom, Winde, Mbaokpo, Aku, Agidi, Gungu, Adoka, Guleya, Awajir, Shiliki, Achonu, and Ulam, and forced thousands of people to flee from their homes. Inter-Society has also investigated and found that one of the major triggers of army-targeted massacre of defenseless Christian civilian population at the slightest or no provocation in Nigeria, especially in the Christian held part, is domination and control of key army commands in these areas by senior officers of Fulani Hausa Muslim extraction. On the other hand, we found that Christian army commanders in Muslim-held northern parts of the country are insignificant in number, and where they are posted, they work under what appears to be strict caliphate instructions. The takeover and control of key army formations in Christian-held parts of the country by these Muslim officers signal a deliberate policy of the present government of Nigeria and has been primarily responsible for the disproportionate security lapses and endangerment of the safety of the affected Christian civilian population and their properties, thereby putting these people not only in danger, but also exposing them to attacks by jihadist Fulani herdsmen, jihadist Fulani bandits, and others. We provide you here with a record of how 350 Christian civilians were massacred by Nigerian army in 10 months. In Takum, Taraba, 30 unarmed Christian civilians were killed by soldiers on 29th and 30th June 2020. At Emene in Enugu, October 2020, at least 30 Christian civilians were killed. On 20th October 2020, at least 20, mostly Christians, were killed at Lekki in Lagos State and across the Southeast during the #EndSARS protest. In the same October 2020, at least 30 defenseless Christian civilians were killed by soldiers in Enugu, Abia, Anambra, Imo, and Ebonyi states. Between 21st October and mid-November 2020, the army massacred at least 102 Christian civilians in Obi-Igbo and other areas in Rivers State. Between 14th and 22nd of January 2021, the army killed at least 10 Christian civilians, including 6 farmers in Olu, Imo State. On 5th April 2020, at least 30 Christian civilians were killed by soldiers in SCM Udim, Akwa Ibom State. On 6th to 7th April 2021, 100 Christian civilians or more were massacred by soldiers in Shangev Tiev Konshisha local government area located in Benue State, and dozens of others are still missing. Biafrans, how long must we endure these atrocities? What is the nature of justice when those who have sworn to uphold it violate it? Why is it that those who have sworn to protect our lives are the very people who seem to destroy it? We must work to restore our humanity and dignity. And now, news from the diaspora. A Nigerian resident in Malaysia is facing deportation by the Malaysian Immigration Service. Nigerian national Simon Adewise Momo, who has been detained at the Semenyi Immigration Depot for the last 1 month, despite having paid his fine for a drunk driving offense, has been served a deportation order, his lawyer said. Momo, who has been married to Lo for the past 8 years and has a valid visa, was arrested at a roadblock in Chesaras in the early hours of March 15th on suspicion of drunk driving. He pleaded guilty in court the same day, paid the RM 12,000 fine, and his wife Lo was told he would be released at 5 p.m. However, he has been detained at the Seminyi Detention Center since then. Authorities previously denied access for his lawyer, Vemal Arasan, and his wife Lo to meet Momo, citing COVID-19 restrictions. This ends our news compilation. This is BCB, the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra. This is Rose Ama. Let's get wiser.
Sina fiti. Isi no easy. The fota no boka inene. Each one madamo bugino nyegekino. One day you go tired. One day you go hella. From your body turn to fire. You will do coco.
This is BCB, the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra.
You are welcome to our broadcast of today. I am your friend and brother, Ugonnaya Awele of the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra. I am bringing to you a detailed work on the needs to regulation, exploitation, value addition and protection of mining communities in Biafra land. The case of lead mining at Enyigba villages of Ebonyi, Biafra. The earth is our home, but apart from providing us the physical base on which we live, it provides practically every raw material and resources needed in our successful living. Many resources have predictions on the way we use our earth or the way we exploit the earth, in fact. One of such studies states that by 2030, 25% of all animals, birds, fish, and insects may be extinct. Yet human desire to exploit the earth keeps expanding more and more, leading to environmental degradation. Degradation of the environment involves the deterioration of air, water, and soil, or any change whatsoever that alters or aggravates nature by making it undesirable or harmful to human, animal, and plant life. The United Nations International Strategy for Disaster Reduction sees environmental degradation as the reduction of the ability of the earth to satisfy the life needs of man and other living things. And by the earth, we mean the entire components of our natural environment, including our air, water bodies, forests, and the atmosphere in general. Environmental degradation can happen in any number of ways. It may be destruction, exhaustion, or change in character and nature of the resource so that it cannot be useful to man. Therefore, the exploitation, exploration, and subsequent uptake of resources must be done in a way to protect both the mining community and the production chain, as well as the environment which will be exposed to the resource being excavated. Environmental protection must be incorporated into any mining venture by requiring that the certifying department must ensure that protective gears are worn by miners. Regulatory guidelines must be followed in the handling of metals so mined, and that mine wastes are also managed in a way that the environment is protected from the excavated metals which are in the soils. Most important is that the indigenous people are central to the resource within their lands. They must be made aware of it, trained to exploit these natural resources safely, both for them and their communities. Value addition to these resources must be done at the center of extraction and not in foreign nations at all. In fact, a training institute, a research center, production value addition and processing industries must be established at the center of any mining industry for that product being mined therefrom. The contamination of the soil, contamination of water resources, land use disturbance due to pollution, deforestation, landfills, among others, are detrimental to human, plant, and animal health. It also leads to the destruction of the natural scenery of habitats, loss of tourism, and economic value of landscape. With special emphasis on Biafra, the inability of Nigerian government to regulate or control the extraction of natural resources has led to a rapid degradation of our land, its resources, and the communities we live in, with tremendous health and productivity issues being the result. The solid mineral extraction industry is the least regulated and controlled industry in the Nigerian economy. But apart from oil and gas, this industry contributes millions of naira for those who are involved in the mining industry, either as native miners or rogue companies which are loosely licensed. In many Biafran communities where naturally occurring minerals are very accessible on the earth's surface, they are easy to extract. One of such mining locations are the Enyiba group of villages in Ebonyi. Enyiba is a community within Abakaliki and Ikwo districts of Biafra. There are mines, many mine pits dotting the community in many areas. These open cast mining pits have been mined by the native communities even before the colonial times, when the natives mined galena and used them as fishing weight rods. According to the study of Nnabo 2016, the earliest known mining activity at Enyiba was in the year 1925. However, just about 20 years ago, between 2005 and 2010, there was an increased interest by the state government in the mining activities at Enyiba. This brought foreign extractive companies into the mines. The interest of the natives therefore peaked, and there was conflict, which led to loss of lives. In 2017, there was an agreement which allowed the natives access to the mines at stipulated days and times per week, and an insurance to purchase whatever each native miner was able to extract by the foreign companies operating the major mine pits. Every economic activity at Enyiba now centers on the mine. It is a major source of income as well as providing much needed employment for the community. Lead oxides and other associated metals like zinc, cadmium, iron oxides are bagged and sold to these companies. Excavated soils also become building materials which are sold to construction companies. So in effect, everyone gets something from the mines. Some are interested in the stones and the sands, whereas others go into the mine pits for lead. Lead is used in the construction industry, in batteries, lead acid batteries, as weights, and for lead in soldering and arc welding. Lead is used in pewters, as collector's items, as fusible alloys, and as radiation shield. These are the uses of lead to man. However, the clinical effect of lead on human beings are enormous. Lead is very poisonous to man, animals, and plants alike. It is not excreted from the body, but deposited in body tissues and in bones. Lead is a neurotoxin that damages the nervous system, leading to brain disorder, and according to Schwartz 1984, Bellinger 1987, there's a mistake, Bellinger 1987, and Davis 1993. All these three studies concluded the finding that at a little quantity, just above 10 mg per deciliter of lead in the human body, it damages the nervous system. Lead has been implicated in juvenile delinquency, and in violent crime by the studies of Thompson in 1989, Neville 2000, and Lapierre in 1986. Again, due to prolonged exposure to lead before the age of puberty, lead poisoning causes hypertension, reproductive difficulties, and poor development of the fetus during pregnancy. This was published in the study of WHO, 1991. Alexander in a 1996 study, and Sharma et al. In their study of 2007, found that occupational exposure led to decreased sperm count and abnormal sperm frequencies. The Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, Atlanta, Georgia, in 2005 reported that acute lead exposure in children led to coma, convulsions, stupor, and death at levels of between 70 to 80 milligrams per deciliter of lead in the human body. The National Academy of Sciences in a 1993 study reports that cognitive functions, language and reading skills are impaired by lead, that mental developmental index scores, school progress, and visual motor skills were all affected by high levels of lead contamination, especially in young children. Let's go back to Enyimba. Children as young as 10 years old are actively involved in lead oxide mining at the mines of Enyimba. They are not aware of the dangers of the element to their health. During the study visit to Enyimba in 2017, we saw large mounds of excavated soils all around the mines. This researcher visited 7 active mines, including the largest mine pit at Isiago, Enyimba. But in fact, the locals said there are hundreds of both active and abandoned mine pits all over Enyimba. At Isiago mine pit, a conservative estimate put the excavated soil on the surface at not less than 200 million tons. Sand, soil, excavated on the surface of the earth at Isiago main mine pit at not less than 200 million tons. But the reality is that unless a visitor climbs up the mines, it will not be obvious that the soils was excavated and not a hill. Similarly, there are many of these open cast mining pits all over the community. During rains, flood water carries the heavy metals in these excavated soils into the streams and rivers and all over the farmlands across Enyimba town, thereby contaminating the environment. Families who live close to the mine pits also fetch water for their household uses from shallow mining pits. A native elder, Mazi Okoronwibo, told this researcher that his family discovered a new mine pit in that 2017 farming season while making large mounds for yam cultivation. In an answer to a question, Mazi said he would prefer to sell his stock of lead oxides and use the proceeds to treat himself at the hospital if he ever gets sick. Then any leftover from the income of mining activities will be his family's profit. This means that he does not understand the extent of the danger in mining lead without protective gear. In that same 2017 research study, it was reported that incidents of lead from 40 meters away to 4 mine pits, 40 meters, and replicated from 4 cardinal points of the mine pits tested, including one abandoned mine pit, showed highly elevated levels of lead, as well as the presence of high levels of 3 more heavy metals, cadmium, zinc, and iron, in the soils of Enyimba. Only at as far away as 2 kilometers from the mines did the test results show a normal soil lead level associated with a burning environment. Crops grown in the vicinity of the mines are similarly contaminated. Water taken from the mine pits also show elevated levels of lead too. The villagers insist that they do not drink water from the mine pits, but use them for bathing and laundry purposes. Today, as we raise issues with the international efforts at environmental protection, we remind ourselves that there are much more that we can do, both to protect our mining communities, to encourage and increase economies of scale towards creating jobs, enhancing skills and developing Biafra as a whole, and then placing the natural resources in our lands into the scheme affairs of Biafra to benefit indigenous people and the homeland. Thank you for listening. I am Ugonnaya Awele of the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra. Thank you.
This is Rose Ama. This is BCB, the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra. Earlier on this program, you heard about the problem of lead poisoning, lead contamination of the soil, food, and water resources caused by lead mining and open lead pits in a community in Ebonyi State. In this segment, we now focus on the problem of environmental devastation stemming from oil pollution, deforestation, and the Fulani herdsmen. In 1956, oil was discovered in the Niger Delta region of Nigeria. One might say that the discovery would improve the lives of Biafrans and other Nigerians in general, but that would not be the case. The Nigerian federal government and local politicians have hijacked the oil wealth of the Niger Delta to enrich themselves and their cronies. Scholars and historians agree that the Biafran-Nigerian War was primarily about the control of the oil wealth of this region. Not only did the discovery of oil mark the beginning of Nigeria's repressive control of the region, but also it rang the death knell of the rich agricultural and fishing communities of the Niger Delta. Gas flaring, frequent oil spills, oil blowouts, and the destruction of fishing grounds represent only some of the environmental devastations that plague Biafra land, particularly the Niger Delta region. Indigenous rights and resistance activities such as oil bunkering, oil pipeline bombings and sabotage, although deployed against the state government, the federal government of Nigeria, and the multinational oil corporations such as Shell and Chevron, have also exacerbated the environmental devastation of the region. Rusting oil pipelines add to the pollution of the land and water resources. A study conducted by Amnesty International several years ago highlights the environmental devastation. It states that in Bomu, quote, the aging 50-year-old pipes and rusty pumps have burst and spilled large quantities of oil at least 7 times since 1990. And in 2009, a fire broke out lasting 36 hours, leading to another major spill. When UN Environment Program, UNEP, inspectors visited the site in 2010, they found high levels of contamination all around Bomu, pollution 5 meters deep in places, and oil spreading into nearby cassava fields and water supplies, unquote. Amnesty International revisited Bomu 3 times. They found the site still massively contaminated despite claims from Shell and the Nigerian government's watchdog pollution body that it had been cleaned up satisfactorily in 2012. According to Amnesty, working with the Port Harcourt-based Center for Environment, Human Rights and Development, quote, water containing oil flows along the path of the Shell pipelines. At places, there are pools of oil. Some oil is black and hard. The 3 fish ponds owned by a local family are covered in a thick oily sheen and show no signs of life. The spills have contaminated fields and a neighboring forest and have spread down into the Barabidum swamp, unquote. In the 1990s, the late poet, journalist turned environmental activist Ken Saro-Wiwa, attained international fame for his fight for environmental justice in the Niger Delta. He led MOSOP, Movement for the Survival of the Ogoni People, in a struggle against the Nigerian government and the multinational petroleum corporations such as Shell and Chevron for the preservation of Ogoni lands. He helped to draft the Ogoni Bill of Rights, which highlights the ethnic autonomy of Ogoni people and underscores, quote, that a search for oil has caused severe land and food shortages in Ogoni, unquote. The document adds that, quote, the neglectful environmental pollution laws and substandard inspection techniques of the federal authorities have led to the complete degradation of the Ogoni environment, turning our homeland into an ecological disaster, unquote. The environmental devastation of the Niger Delta has continued even after Saro-Wiwa's death. Earlier this year, 2021, members of the Polo-Bubo community, also known as Chekelewu in Warri North local government area of Delta State, indicated that their people are facing a death sentence due to the environmental devastation of their areas. The community raised alarm over crude oil spillage polluting their homes, farmlands, and rivers. In January 2021, BBC News reported that, quote, a Dutch appeals court has ruled that the Nigerian branch of oil giant Shell is responsible for damage caused by leaks in the Niger Delta, unquote. In a BBC News video documentary on how oil spill is devastating Bayelsa State, residents complain about being harmless. A woman laments, quote, it's hard for us to feed ourselves, adding, the oil is responsible. Even if you catch some fish, you cannot eat it. Some are okay, but on others, their heads are the only things left, unquote. A man complains, I don't have power, I cannot stop them. In the background, we can see dead mangroves and sludge in the water. A young interviewee asks, how do you expect the youths to feel? How do you expect these people to survive? These indeed are critical questions. In fact, how can we survive if our land is dead? But it is not only the environmental devastation stemming from oil pollution that plagues Biafra land. We must include the destruction of farmlands and communities by Fulani herdsmen and their cattle across Biafra land. Today, Biafrans are confronting increasing deforestation of their region as the Fulani cattle gorge themselves through the rainforest and farmlands unrestricted. Farmers have been displaced or lost their lives, their food resources, homes, or properties. Those whose lands have been destroyed have neither been compensated nor provided alternative options. The Nigerian federal government has made no efforts to address the food insecurity caused by the environmental violence. Indeed, the Nigerian government support of Fulani herders and silence over the destruction of our farmlands is complicity. Deforestation has also led to soil erosion in Biafra land. Traveling by road through any state in Biafra land is a contract with demons in the form of reckless drivers assisted by the bad roads that are simply trenches waiting to devour any vehicle. How is it that more than 50 years after the Biafra-Nigeria war, the road infrastructure in Biafra land looks worse than it was during the war? Because of deforestation and land erosion, flooding persists. Roads are washed out, communities are flooded, and food and water sources are consequently contaminated or destroyed. What has the Nigerian government done? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Is it therefore any wonder that Biafrans want autonomy? The collective efforts of these environmental devastations constitute violence against Biafrans, directly or indirectly, sponsored by the federal government of Nigeria or its proxies. The consequences are population displacement, the death of agricultural lands, food insecurity, and poor health environments in Biafra land. In an area where over 80% of the people depend on subsistence agriculture for food, the destruction of farmlands, either by Fulani cattle herders or oil spills or lead poisoning or poor road infrastructure can only be described as an act of war against Biafran people. Biafrans demand redress. We must hold the federal government of Nigeria accountable for its acts of aggression against our people, our communities, our lands. We must also hold our local leaders who serve this oppressive government accountable. They too are complicit. We must hold ourselves accountable for demanding better and demand better protection of our environment and work to restore our land, food, and water resources. Fulani herdsmen and their cattle have no place in our farmlands. We call on the federal government of Nigeria and state governments who serve as proxy to engage in rigorous cleanup of polluted lands, implement strict regulation protocols, and make whole those whose communities have been devastated by these environmental threats. We close this segment with a message of the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres for International Mother Earth Day, observed on 22nd April. Quote, as we mark International Mother Earth Day, our planet is at a tipping point. Humanity continues to abuse the natural world. We heedlessly plunder the Earth's resources, deplete its wildlife, and treat air, land, and seas as dumping grounds. Crucial ecosystems and food chains are being pushed to the brink of collapse. This is suicidal. We must end our war on nature and nurse it back to health. That means bold climate action to limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius and adapt to the changes to come. It means stronger steps to protect biodiversity, and it means reducing pollution by building circular economies that drive down waste, unquote. Fellow Biafrans, you have heard. Now it is your responsibility to act. Hold yourselves accountable. Hold our leaders accountable. We are the guardians of the earth. Save the earth and we save ourselves. Destroy the earth and we all perish. Goddess, Mother, Earth, Divine Allah, Consort of Amadioha, you who holds our feet to the ground, we praise you. You, keeper of our ancestors, we sing your name, Allah, Allah, Allah. You, holder of the memory of the universe, from you we emerge, renewed each day. To you we return, placing our bodies within yours. Shield us from those who threaten us, be they known or unknown. Bless us with your great gifts of life, breath, and space. May we always be grateful to you for our survival. We whom you have birthed, we honor you. We honor you, Allah, Allah, Allah. We praise you, Ise. I am Rose Ama. This is BCB, the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra. This is the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra. Thank you for listening to us today. Join us next time for news, cultural, and educational programs. This is the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB.
Give